I'm with Steve Giddens today from Hoop Recruits Downunder. He's in charge of player recruitment for colleges, college recruitment, and we're going to have a little bit of chat about how guys can get into college. So first things first, you've got a background as a agent for players. Correct. So let's just talk about recruitment in general.
Yeah.
And how coaches approach the recruitment process and what sort of players they actually look for across all levels, not just college but professional level as well.
Yeah, absolutely, Craig. So the biggest thing is always, the first thing I get asked is always attitude based with the player. So obviously we'll get a specific come through from the coaches saying we're after a 2 or we're after a 3 or we're after a 5. Needs to be athletic or needs to be able to bash in the post, needs to be able to do this. So we get the rundown. But when we send them those players, the very first thing they're going to come back with is there any baggage that comes with this guy? That's the biggest question that we get asked.
So on that, how do you determine what baggage they may have? Because some can be quite good at masking some of the baggage, if you can put it that way.
Correct. So I guess this is the biggest key for it is building the relationships with their former coaches. A lot of the guys that I also get, I've had relationships with former teammates of theirs, so it's very easy to vet a player nowadays. Once they're out of the coach's hands at college level, they've got no obligation to say anything kind about them. So I guess the biggest thing is that the basketball world is a really, really small place. Everybody knows everybody in some respect. So hypothetically, there's a player in Adelaide that's come from a school, let's say example, University of Chattanooga in Tennessee. It doesn't take me long to work out that assistant coach Eddie Shannon at Chattanooga played for the 36ers. Easy to get his contact details, easy to make a call. How is this guy? Any issues on the court? Any issues off the court? What's his work ethic like? It's very easy to get those answers. So the vetting process is easy. It's just a matter of making that connection with who the person is and who we all mutually know.
So you mentioned attitude as being one of the key indicators that coaches request information on when you're recruiting players for both professional and college
Absolutely.
programs. What other aspects are there? You mentioned work ethic a moment ago. Is that another one that's...
Work ethic's a key one. Guys will obviously get a certain amount of time in practice. Depending on how far they want to develop themselves, they can go as far as they like. You'll see guys, and I'm just using Adelaide as an example here, you'll get a lot of guys that will come over and say, I do my 2 practices a week, I play my game on the weekend, I can't find enough gym time to do what I need to do to go any further. I'm lacking gym time, I'm lacking people to work out with. All this kind of thing is easily remedied by just making connections around the place. So I've seen guys down there that are working out 6-7 days a week, getting into the 36ers with them, practicing with them, doing those kind of things, going to gyms with other players from other teams, just networking and building on what they do.
I've seen that stuff with Hoop Recruits Downunder too. I know that Graham McFall, who is another person that I'll speak to in the coming weeks, I know that he's actually been out. He's like a trainer with Hoop Recruits Downunder.
Correct. And
a coach, and he's out working out guys for Hoop Recruits Downunder. What sort of feel do you get from those guys who are working out? Does that also give you some insight into what type of player they are ahead of helping them?
Definitely, absolutely. So I guess the biggest thing is we get a group of guys together, which we did while we were up here the other day, and you can almost see immediately when you're out on the floor with those guys how hard they've been pushed before. You can tell the guys that are already at that level, that are ready to go over. It's very easy to make that connection to them immediately and say, okay, I can see where you're going to fit. You may have someone that's naturally skilled, but may not have been pushed as far as what they're going to be pushed. So we can't immediately tell how far this player can go. So the beauty about having Graham down here at the moment is we can spend a lot of time together working on that. So putting them through workouts and putting them in a situation where they're uncomfortable to start with. They may be playing against guys that have played at higher levels than them. Really gives us a good chance to see how far we can push these kids and how how well they survive the first test.
So as a recruiter, you understand what the coaches are looking for.
Correct.
The advantage, I guess, of having someone like Graham involved in that training process is he's involved in that college system, so he
Correct.
knows what the expectations are when those guys actually arrive at their programs. He's had experience across, level ones right through down to Division 3, so his broad experience would add value to the recruitment process, I guess, in that he can give you feedback on where these athletes may well be placed in the college recruitment process.
That's absolutely right, Craig. So I guess the big thing is it's hard sometimes to gauge how well these guys are going to go when they go over and play in the States. Just because they're different levels. Kids are pushed harder over there. The game is generally faster, it's higher tempo. Things are done at a quicker pace, generally speaking, over there. So it's hard to get a group of 10 Aussie kids together and put them through their paces and actually see how that translates over there. So by bringing in things that are instilled into these players in the American form of practice, it's huge. It really is, because we're going to bring tests in that are going to show how strong this kid is, that just going and watching them at a local practice, we may not see those same things being pushed onto them. So yeah, it's very important to have Graham come over and do those things with the guys.
And on that, the players themselves may have preconceived ideas on where they should be going or headed into the college system, and it may not actually be that they're ready for the level that they think they're ready for. And I guess you can provide them with that feedback, but you can also provide them with that reality check.
Yeah, you can, and you can provide that reality check to them, but at the same time, I don't want to look at someone that comes up to me and says, my mate went to a D2 school, I think I'm better than him, I can play at a D2. And then we watch him and we don't feel that he's probably ready for that level. To me, it doesn't necessarily mean that he's never going to be ready for it. So I guess it's the matter of the way that we speak to them, because we don't want to break them down that you can't play at this level, but we probably need to let them know that realistically, you're not going to get there right now. And I guess the big thing with that is we're putting ourselves and we're putting that player in a bad situation if we send them to a school that we don't feel like they're ready for. We send someone over to a coach and they're not ready, and the coach will come back to us and say, why are you sending me these guys? He's not ready for my program.
Yeah, and I think that ultimately is a decision of the coach. So the information and the footage and the feedback that you provide that coach needs to be relatively accurate if they're looking for specific individuals, whether it be at the college level or as previously with your experience recruiting for National League teams here in Australia, recruiting players. For those programs, that it's your reputation that's on the line as well. Absolutely. If you haven't done your job, so you've got to make sure that it is the right fit across those levels. So look, Steve Giddens, it's been a great pleasure talking to you. We will definitely do it again and see where you're at. Hoop Recruits Down Under is actually a new beast, I suppose we could say, here on the Australian basketball scene. There are other hoop recruitment agencies. What do you feel makes you different from those that are already in this space here in Australia?
Look, Craig, I think through my background, I think it definitely helps me help these athletes. I have built up over the years a relationship with a number of coaches over in the US. I've seen guys that have come out of Division 1 schools and come and played in Australia. I've also seen kids that have come from Division 2 schools and played in Australia. And it gives me more of a feel for how their game translates. So when an import comes over, I can see how they're going against, because a lot of these kids are actually playing against these guys in QBL, Big V, SA Premier League, SBL in Perth, for example. These imports are playing against these kids, so it gives me a good basis to kind of see how they match up on these imports. I guess the other thing is that because of the relationships that we've built up with coaches, I understand a lot of the things that make these coaches tick. So it's, for example, if I've got a really, really timid kid that can really play, it's better not for me to maybe send them to a coach that is going to fume at them and grill at them all the time.
So you need to know both player and coach, basically.
Correct,
and make sure that the fit, even though they're looking for specific players, that those players understanding their nuances and idiosyncrasies and things like that those things are actually going to be taken into consideration to make sure that the match between program and player is well on the other side. So it's not just what the coaches want.
Exactly.
It's basically getting the correct fit for
Yeah,
both.
we don't want the kids to go over there and have an unenjoyable experience. And the same thing, we don't want the coaches over there. These are schools that could potentially be bringing in their first Australian based on what we're telling them. So we don't want either side of the party to be left with a sour taste in their mouth from it. We want programs to bring in the best of our Aussie kids, develop them for us so that potentially they can come back and strengthen our national leagues here. They can strengthen our national team. That's what we're looking for. So yeah, it's got to work both ways.
Great, thanks for your time, Steve.
Thanks, Craig.
Thanks for coming to Queensland and showing us what you're all about.
We'll be back soon.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks.